Now, with just over a week to go until the local government elections, politics have been marred with bitter criticism and malice. These elections are supposed to look at issues of service delivery and not reopening of racial wounds. Vitriol takes over as political parties play on voter sympathy, emotions, and race to garner votes. On the debate, we ask, is this election about voting to improve service delivery or reopening racial wounds? Joining us is Professor Shadrack Guto from UNISA. Baleni Sibanda is a research assistant at Wits University. Sitaki Khomo is an independent political analyst. Jacob Mamabolo is the provincial secretary of the SACP. And Makashule Ghana is the DA member of parliament. And we also have Baleni Sibanda. And that includes everybody. You're most welcome to give us a call as well at home on 011-542-2186 or tweet at ANN7TV. Gentlemen, thanks indeed for your time. So we asked a simple question with what the political party leaders clearly are not able to resist, the mudslinging and name-calling, whether at the heart of it all, is it really about service delivery, Mr. Ghana, or is it just going after that elusive black vote?
Thanks, Cindy. I must say that the elections this year are about delivering services to the people of South Africa and making the progress that has been made in many areas. But you know, it's very worrying, and in a certain instance, it shows that from our part, especially as a DA, that we are making inroads. I mean, when you start having a president of the country and a president of a ruling party having a go at the official opposition, it means that our message is hitting home. More and more South Africans are identifying with the DA message, and that in itself gives us courage, especially as we head to the August 3rd election.
Jacob, do you agree that the message is penetrating, it's becoming uncomfortable for the ANC?
He knows it's not even true. He himself doesn't believe in what he's saying.
Okay, let's just get reactions. Baleni, your view in what this does for a country that aspires and espouses to have all-inclusive egalitarian society and sharing in the wealth of this country. So when we see political leaders doing this, the other one being called a snake, the other one say don't vote, or black people rather, if you vote DA, then there's something inherently wrong with you. Are we missing the point here that the key issue is about service delivery and not really working on voter sympathy, if you will?
Yes, that could be true, that the point is being missed. But I think that is the desperation to actually get to be in the lead. Actually, I think that's what I would say, that the desperation to be in the lead. So there is that contestation in terms of ideas, in terms of, calling each other names, so that at the end of the day, you kind of win the votes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rekhomo, just with the DA obviously posturing and positioning itself as the all-inclusive or answer to South Africa's problems when it comes to racial issues, the economy, etc., is this a pipe dream in your view, if we are just to juxtapose that with the ANC's track record?
Well, I think what is very, very important is that in politics, the end justifies the means, as in terms of the military science we are told that is the case. What I would like to say is that throughout the world, in any election stage, one is experiencing a period where there are tensions, there are emotions that run very, very high. That is acceptable. The only biggest challenge in my view is when such political mudslinging does not degenerating into inciting the people to commit acts of violence. That's very, very important. If you look at the world's advanced democracy, the United States, the current situation of Trump versus Clinton, there is that type of dynamic politicking is acceptable. The only unacceptable situation is where the rhetoric in terms of politicking goes to that extent that it undermines the spirit and letter of the Constitution. In other words, the freedom of the people to make choices when we come to vote, and also the inciting of the violence. I think that is very, very important that we have to guard against that.
All right, Professor Guto, Jacob Zuma in his capacity as ANC president, when he says vote for the ANC and black people vote for the ANC, is there something constitutionally incorrect, or is this permitted within the electioneering period, or pitch rather?
Some of it nuances of what President Jacob Zuma said are worrying, because otherwise you are saying people like Joe Slovo, those in government now like Dr. Rob Davis, and so many white people who participated in the struggle are racist. Therefore, any white person is racism. But secondly, I would like to say that to try and pigeonhole the DA as a racist organization that wants to bring back apartheid is quite wrong. The ANC swallowed parts of the National Party, the new National Party. The Democratic Alliance swallowed part of it, and Freedom Front Plus swallowed some of it. So the ANC cannot say that it has swallowed part of apartheid party, and therefore only the DA is that. So I think that we need to move away from that paradigm, because it is not trying to build a non-racial society. It is one that is trying to pigeon people to say black people are non-racist. ANC is a broad church, but that is also a very complex concept, because you can't be a broad church and still appeal for votes from the Muslims, from the Hindus, from the Jews.
Let's just go to Jacob. Maybe you respond quickly, but I also want to get a word in from the DA in terms of your approach to your electioneering campaign, where you could have showcased your own political stalwarts, but of course you chose to go the Nelson Mandela route, of whom we know is associated with the ANC just from a branding point of view. I know the world icon status, but why is it that you hadn't used your own arsenal?
You know, Cindy, when one looks at Nelson Mandela, you're looking at the father of democratic South Africa. You know, and he's a founding father, as I say, of democratic South Africa. And one of the things that ideals that he stands for was that we need to work together to build a prosperous South Africa. And one of the important things, I mean, when one looks at, even at the preamble of our constitution, we need to recognize that we come from a very divided past. And we need to recognize that this country belongs to all of us and not to some of us. It belongs to all of us, and we must work together. So what we're saying is that as South Africans, we are better together, we are better working together, because at the end of the day, this country belongs to all of us, and we must at all times be proud to be South Africans.
Hilton is calling us from Cape Town. Margaret, we see you in Tshwane. Hello to you, Hilton.
Hi, Hilton. Margaret in Pretoria, can you hear me?
Let's move on, Jacob. Sorry about that. Just your response to what Mr. Ghana was saying regarding the position of the DA wanting to be all-inclusive and seemingly the ANC being more divisive for the country.
Certainly what he's saying is not true. The ANC is the only organization in this country which since 1912 till today has put a clear case to unite all the people of this country. One of the reasons why we have got peace and stability in this country is because the African National Congress, throughout the length and breadth of this country, has united people across race, across all gender and religious divisions. None of the organizations in this country can claim that record of holding us together as a single, united, democratic country. So anyone who speaks to that issue must appreciate that that track record belongs absolutely and only to the African National Congress and the people of this country. What Professor Guto was saying is also completely wrong, because President Zuma made the point about black people in the movement in the African National Congress, in the alliance, and of course the country. We talk about the historically oppressed people who are Africans and black people. So Professor Guto cannot talk about the future without its past, that we must only look to the future. That type of a future is unsustainable. The mockingbirds are going to laugh at it, because you can't have a future that disconnects, that is de-linked from its past. So we must have an appreciation of the past, the present, and the future. These things are linked. You can't de-link them.
All right, Margaret is back with us in Pretoria. Hi, Margaret.
Hello?
Hi, we're listening. What's your question or comment?
Ahmed, I just want you to please tell your panel we are so tired of hearing of apartheid and racial discrimination. We want the votes to go out nicely. And I mean, Mr. Zuma's caused so much problem in this country that I don't even think we should go vote for him anymore. And it doesn't come right, no matter what they do. Thank you so much.
All right, Margaret. And of course, Mr. Baleni, just looking at the sentiment there by Margaret in that, and it tends to be a common narrative that nothing had been done, and Zuma is the personification of the country's problems. But realistically speaking, there's a selective way of positioning the DA's the electioneering campaign. Exactly that. The corruption, Zuma this, Zuma that. And the ANC has come back with their own advertisement saying, you know, historically, these are the improvements that are tangible that we have made. How does all of this play out in the voters' mind when they have to make that critical decision to vote for party A or B?
It's difficult because all the parties would surface with key issues that they think are priority and are in the lead to actually amass the votes. So you will find that at the end of the day, it will also depend on the generation. There are people who are just loyal to a political party, who don't need that much of a campaign, who don't need that much of electioneering. But you find that the key area now becomes the youth. What is it that is on offer that they'll take from what Zuma is saying? Or what is it that is on offer that the youth will take from what DA is saying?
We're actually seeing the EFF making inroads there. Sorry to break your word. Michael is calling us in George, and Hilton, I believe you're back from with us in Cape Town. Hello to you, Michael. Hi, Michael.
It's Douglas.
Oh, hi. Sorry, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, Cindy, I'd like to say something to that guy that I think is a communist wearing the red jacket. He more says they need to always go to the past. You know what the past is? It's always going to be the past. If we got to go back to the past, then we've got to say the ANC was a terrorist organization. And now it shouldn't be called ANC anymore. It should be ANC corruption, ANC criminals. So he must stop saying, oh, but they've done so much.
Yeah.
Because then we can all go back to the past. Forget about the past, press on to the future. And start
Michael,
looking how we solve how we can start fixing up the future. And forget about the past and looking how sorry we are for all the things that have happened.
All right, then. Let's get Hilton, you in Cape Town. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you. I just have a comment on your last caller's comments.
Go ahead.
Is that, to a certain extent, is quite correct. But what I can't understand, why always blame apartheid for flaws in the ANC government? They always blame unemployment on apartheid. They always blame the apartheid for ANC from apartheid. I want to know, how does the ANC, if they win this election, how are they going to improve this point? Never mind the past. I'm a white South African, and I've got no problem with anybody. But how can I employ people who have got no education, no skills? Who's going to train these people to get those skills?
Okay, let's get the politicians to respond. Hilton, thanks so much. Jacob.
No, I think there are two theoretical constructs that we must quickly correct. The first one, and I'll be surprised if anyone was to insist on that point, that we must, everything that has got to do with our country only started now and present, and we must completely forget and bury that our country has had a history of oppression, of colonialism, of dispossession, because once you want us to bury that history, you then take out President Jacob Zuma, isolate him, and make him to blame for also the entire history of apartheid must be plucked on President Jacob Zuma, because this country has never had a history. The problems of this country started with President Zuma. That narrative is completely wrong.
So this is
We've
the
had
denialism
colonialism
then.
in this country. We've had apartheid. They can't wish it away. It might be a painful past to remind them. It might be an inconvenient truth. But the truth is, and the truth will set them free, because people were oppressed in this country.
So, Jacob, what you're saying is that the DA's denialism is carefully crafted in order to win.
The DA is the party of apartheid. It represents, if you look carefully.
Okay, let Mr. Ghana respond.
Sure. You will see that this is a party that seeks to preserve apartheid.
Let Mr. Ghana respond.
You see, Cindy, and for Jacob to come and sitting here is also in the ANC. Jacob knows very well that the apartheid leaders, the National Party, collapsed into the ANC. In fact, the ANC swallowed the National Party. But I don't want to come here and waste more time talking about apartheid. Because I said earlier that one of the important aspects of our constitution is that the preamble calls on us as the current generation to recognize that apartheid was an injustice. But one of the things that we must not always, blame people or blame apartheid is the issue of corruption. I know we can blame apartheid on many things, but now the current generation of leaders, of political leaders, cannot stand and say, no, as opposition parties, as South Africans, you cannot raise the issue of corruption. Because you see, Cindy, corruption is the greatest threat against the poor in this country.
All right,
because corruption, when we talk of young people, corruption steals from the inheritance of young people in this country. So for someone to come and say...
We'll come back and deal with the issue of corruption. Let's go with Ponzo in Mahikeng.
It was supposed to stop
we're listening to you.
It did not stop it.
Let's just get Ponzo. Let's get Ponzo on the line.
You did not stop it. That's why you're busy dealing with it
but
now.
you see, if the leaders are not exemplary enough, you know what, listening is also a skill. It's required for leaders to be able to get your point across. So if I may, Ponzo, hello. Thanks for your patience. You're calling us from Mahikeng.
Yes, Cindy, how are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you.
I'm all right. Cindy, there's nothing wrong that the president has said on Saturday. DA must know that they are nest of apartheid and will continuously raise this issue for as long as apartheid has persisted over 300 years. You cannot expect us to forget in just 22 years of democracy that we are enjoying. That's why you see, even during apartheid times, there were black people who were fighting or who were sleeping in one bed with the National Party. I'm calling from Fikeng, a former Bantu stand, which our people have undergone a serious tragedy of apartheid. So DA cannot come today and claim that apartheid has never existed in our country.
All right, but so point taken. All right, Professor Guto, can we neutralize this whole racial card, if you will, in South Africa and really focus on the issues of service delivery? What would it take for us to counter the racism that we're experiencing?
I think that it is important that people do not see racism in South Africa starting in 1948 when the National Party came to power. It started long ago, and it is not going to go away. So trying to look at a very short period since 1948 is part of the problem of thinking and trying to deal with the social foundations of inequality, of poverty, of division, racial, class, and so on in this country. And I think that is important to take into account. The other is that we live in a country at the moment where there is peaceful coexistence. For somebody really to say that the ANC has been responsible for uniting the country, South Africa is not united. It is formally united, but in reality on the ground, it is not. There's serious divisions within the country, and we have to look at that as we try to build and take this country forward.
Rekhomo, then how does service delivery come into play here in ensuring that the playing fields are level, that we deal with issues of redress, and that people are given the dignity that they deserve at every corner where they find themselves?
Well, in South Africa today, we have to accept that South Africa remains a work in progress. It's like a house under construction. 1994 is too short a time to undo the ravages of the legacies of 350 years created by the past regime and past policies. What is very, very critical, and in fact I would like to say that even if I'm not speaking for the ANC is the one that will acknowledge that we have got the duty as society to work towards social cohesion. And that also includes fast-tracking all the things that are associated with service delivery. And that's very fundamental. It can never be true that the ANC, which liberated this country, is the one that is undoing the gains of 1994. It can never be true at all. Even if I'm not speaking for it, I would like to underscore the fact that one should not be disingenuous to say that the ANC, which liberated the country, is suddenly now in love with apartheid. That can never be true at all. But service delivery is part of the house that is under construction, a work in progress. And that is what I think also the National Development Plan talks to that strategic development plan of the country talks to that issue. It never says that South Africa, we have arrived, we have finished the house. The house is still being built. We are a work in progress as a society.
All right, point taken. And now, of course, it's time for the prime poll results for today. We asked viewers whether race has overshadowed service delivery issues in these municipal elections. 67% of you said yes, and 33% of our respondents said no. So an overwhelming number of people saying that we focus so much on racial issues and there's a vitriol, mudslinging, that we miss the critical point, which is that of service delivery, where people can feel it, impact it, and make sure that their tax money is being paid where it's supposed, or used where it's supposed to be. Jacob.
Well, I think that let me welcome the inputs that were made by Prof. and of course my colleague, and that he made a concession acknowledging that the current problems that we're facing in our country are directly connected with what has happened before. Poverty in this country affects mainly Africans and black people, women, the youth. That is not to play the race card. It's to tell the truth as it is. While I respect the democratic, the opinion of the people, but I think also the question itself is slightly problematic because it seeks to separate poverty, unemployment, inequalities from the history of racial oppression and national oppression. Because that's what the question is doing, and that's why if you ask wrong questions, you'll get overwhelmingly majority of wrong answers, because the question itself dealing the issues. You can't deny, and I think everybody has said it, poverty is racialized in South Africa. That is not something we're inventing. That's something that is deeply connected to the reality of our country.
All right,
that is the truth.
You know, Cindy, obviously it is a big worry that we still live in a racially divided country. You know, the task of building a non-racial South Africa, it's a lifetime commitment. You know, it's something that all of us on a daily basis, regardless of where you come from, which political party you come from, which race you come from, it's something that you should commit yourself to do. You know, because what we need to leave behind as this current generation of political leaders is that the next generation should not be consumed by the same issues that we are consumed by. And that's something that it's very critical for us if we are to build a united and prosperous South Africa. You know, so that's something that's key for us.
Mr. Sibanda, we'll give you the last word. Maybe if you can just paint us a picture in terms of corporate South Africa corruption and the corruption that we see playing out in the public sector, particularly when it comes to the big tendering space, where we see a conglomerate of major players, your Group 5s, your HBOs, etc., taking a chunk of the Treasury's money, and nobody really talks about that. We tend to be very single-minded or one-dimensional when we talk about corruption. What does the research say?
I think it is a very wrong practice to let corruption to be part of a democratic society. It has to be weeded. It has to be rooted. It has to be taken off the system. And I think leadership should be bold enough to actually deal with that. And I think we were listening to some states. I think it was the mayor of the Johannesburg Metro, where he was saying at least they've got a hotline. They've dealt with about 200 cases of corruption where people were taken off the system. And I think if that could be part of the system and we could actually, internalize that, become part of the practice, I think that we should be going somewhere.
Just 10 seconds. We're literally out of time, Mr. Mamabona.
There's an article written here by Wesley Seal, and it's entitled DA Corruption Lists Get Longer. And people can read it. It's on News 24. It's an article that detailed the systematic nature in the Western Cape provincial government. Massive corruption, and we understand where this comes from. We've inherited the public service of the past, of the Bantustan, of all that. Some of them are consultants, they're conniving with government officials. So these things of corruption are not falling from the skies. They are also part of the historic system of this country.
Yes,
and it's
I must thank you all. We're fresh out of time. Thanks
Cape.
indeed. Of course, we'll have the panel again as the time permits, but thank you for calling in as well. We'll continue this discussion at ANN7 TV. For now, though, we take a quick ad break. We'll see you shortly.